The knock on the weathered front door came just before sunrise, the kind of knock that carried urgency without anger. Ethan Brooks, a 36-year-old Navy veteran and single father, had already been awake for hours, packing his 8-year-old daughter Lily's lunch while quietly folding another load of laundry before school. Life had trained him to expect bills, bad news, or unexpected problems whenever someone appeared that early. But when he opened the door, standing on the small porch was Victoria Hayes, the 40-year-old CEO of one of the nation's fastest-growing technology companies. Her expensive coat was damp from the morning mist, her eyes carried exhaustion instead of confidence, and the only words she managed to say before tears filled her eyes were the ones Ethan never imagined hearing. She had spent years searching for perfection in the wrong places, endured another disastrous date the previous night, and somehow found herself standing outside the home of the quiet Navy father she barely knew, ready to risk everything by choosing the man who had never tried to impress her. Before we continue this unforgettable journey, please take a moment to like this video, comment below if you believe kindness and second chances can change lives, share this story with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Soulful Stories so you never miss another heartfelt story that reminds us love often arrives when we least expect it. Ethan had never imagined his life would become so small after serving his country with pride. During 12 years in the Navy, he had learned discipline, sacrifice, and courage while spending months away from home protecting people he would never meet. Then one terrible accident during a rescue mission left him with a permanent leg injury that ended his military career earlier than expected. Returning home should have been the beginning of peace, but instead it became the start of a different battle. His wife struggled with the constant changes, the financial uncertainty, and the emotional weight that followed military life. Eventually she walked away, leaving Ethan to raise little Lily alone. There were no dramatic fights, only empty promises that slowly disappeared until father and daughter were left building a new life together with very little money but endless love. Every morning followed the same careful routine. Ethan prepared breakfast before sunrise, braided Lily's hair despite never learning properly, packed her backpack, walked her to school, worked part-time repairing boats at the local marina, returned home to cook dinner, helped with homework, and tucked her into bed before quietly sitting on the porch where he often wondered if life would ever surprise him with something beautiful again. He never complained because he believed real strength was measured by the ability to keep moving forward even when nobody noticed the effort. Victoria Hayes lived in a completely different world. Her schedule was filled with international meetings, magazine interviews, luxury hotels, and endless business dinners. People admired her success but rarely saw the loneliness hidden behind designer clothes and polished smiles. Every relationship she attempted seemed to revolve around her wealth, influence, or public image. Men competed to impress her with expensive gifts and carefully rehearsed compliments, but almost none of them ever asked about her fears, her childhood, or the quiet sadness she carried every evening after another successful day that somehow felt empty. Months earlier, their lives briefly crossed during a charity event honoring military families. Ethan attended only because Lily's school encouraged veteran parents to participate. Victoria had been the event's largest sponsor. While everyone rushed toward the famous CEO, Ethan stayed in the background helping elderly veterans find comfortable seats and entertaining restless children with simple paper airplanes folded from spare programs. Victoria noticed him from across the room. He wasn't trying to attract attention, yet every act of kindness seemed completely natural. Before leaving, Lily accidentally dropped her drawing. Victoria picked it up and smiled at the colorful picture of a father holding his daughter's hand beneath the words, "My hero doesn't wear a cape anymore." That simple drawing stayed in Victoria's mind long after the event ended. Despite remembering Ethan's quiet kindness, Victoria continued chasing the life everyone expected her to have. Friends arranged elegant dinners with wealthy businessmen, influential investors, and charming celebrities. One evening, believing she had finally met someone different, she accepted an invitation to an exclusive restaurant. Throughout dinner the man spoke almost entirely about himself, interrupted every sentence she tried to finish, criticized waiters for minor mistakes, and casually joked that children only complicated successful lives. Those words struck Victoria harder than she expected because she immediately remembered Ethan patiently tying Lily's shoelaces while smiling as though nothing in the world mattered more. That night Victoria drove through quiet neighborhoods instead of returning to her luxury apartment. She realized she couldn't remember the last conversation that felt genuine. Success had surrounded her with people, yet somehow isolated her from sincerity. Then she remembered the address printed months earlier on the charity thank you letter Ethan had mailed with Lily's handmade drawing enclosed inside. When Ethan opened his front door that morning, neither of them knew exactly why fate had brought them together again. Victoria simply admitted that she was tired of pretending perfect appearances mattered more than honest hearts. Ethan invited her inside without judgment. The modest home carried the comforting smell of fresh pancakes, children's books covered the small coffee table, and family photographs decorated walls that had clearly been painted by hand instead of professionals. Everything reflected love instead of luxury. Over breakfast, Victoria quietly watched Ethan encourage Lily to finish her fruit before reaching for pancakes, reminding her gently that strong people took care of themselves first. The little girl laughed easily, completely trusting the father who had become both parents without ever making her feel something was missing. Victoria felt something inside her shift. She had spent years searching for extraordinary people while overlooking ordinary heroes living remarkable lives. As weeks passed, Victoria began visiting more often. She offered to help with community projects instead of expensive donations. Together they organized activities for military families, repaired neglected playgrounds, and created scholarship programs for children whose parents had served in uniform. Ethan never treated Victoria like a celebrity, and Victoria never looked down on Ethan's modest circumstances. They respected each other because both understood sacrifice in different forms. Still, obstacles remained. Newspapers questioned why one of the country's most successful CEOs spent so much time with a struggling veteran. Business partners warned Victoria that public opinion could damage her carefully built image. Social media filled with unfair assumptions that Ethan wanted financial security. Some neighbors whispered that the relationship could never survive such different worlds. Those rumors hurt Ethan deeply. He had spent years protecting his dignity after losing nearly everything. Walking away seemed easier than allowing Victoria's reputation to suffer because of him. He quietly stopped answering her calls, convincing himself that love sometimes meant letting someone go before life became harder. But Victoria had already made her decision. One rainy evening she stood outside Ethan's house once again, this time carrying no expensive gifts, no security team, and no carefully planned speech. She simply carried honesty. She told him through tears that wealth had given her comfort but never peace. Titles had earned admiration but never unconditional acceptance. She explained that after every disappointing relationship, she always found herself remembering the quiet Navy father who measured success by bedtime stories, homemade breakfasts, and acts of kindness no camera ever recorded. She wasn't choosing the easier life. She was choosing the truer one. Ethan finally understood that real love doesn't erase differences. It gives people the courage to face those differences together instead of apart. Lily hugged Victoria without hesitation, and in that simple embrace 3 lonely hearts quietly became one family. Months later, their wedding wasn't held inside a luxurious ballroom but at the community center where military families gathered every year. Veterans stood proudly beside business leaders, wealthy executives shared tables with working-class neighbors, and every guest witnessed something money could never purchase. 2 people from completely different worlds had discovered that character speaks louder than status, and compassion builds stronger foundations than perfection ever could. Victoria continued leading her company with excellence, but she also redefined success by creating opportunities for veterans transitioning into civilian careers. Ethan became director of those programs, helping hundreds of former service members rebuild confidence after leaving the military. Together they proved that healing often begins when someone believes your value isn't measured by your income, appearance, or title, but by your heart. Before this story comes to its heartfelt conclusion, please leave a comment telling us where you're watching from and whether you believe true love is built on kindness rather than wealth. Your words may encourage someone who feels like giving up today. As the years passed, Lily grew into a confident young woman who often smiled whenever people asked how her parents met. She knew the greatest love stories weren't written inside fairy tales or luxury magazines. They were written in ordinary homes where courage answered unexpected knocks on the door, where broken hearts found healing through patience, and where someone finally looked beyond appearances to see the goodness waiting quietly beneath. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who believes hope is still alive, subscribe to Soulful Stories, and leave a heartfelt comment below. Your support allows these inspiring stories to reach more people who need a reminder that sometimes the greatest blessing arrives not with perfect timing, but with the courage to say, "I choose you."